not one of those Democrats had any repercussions for what they did. So of course they're going to do it again next time. Why wouldn't they, right? You have a young man, young woman go to college as a healthy, happy young co-ed, and they return as an unrecognizable swamp walrus who can't have a conversation with their parents at the dinner table. Anarchism means freedom, and it means everyone having the right to do what they want, as you said, but it means private governance. When I go into your house, it's your house.
This is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags.
We're both in Texas. What's funny is we last saw each other at Mar-a-Lago, and I remember I walked up to you, and you gave me a look, and you're like, I know who the guy is. And then I say, it's me, Pag. Pag. And we sort of had a picture together with Ashley St. Clair, our mutual friend. You were not living here then, right? How recently have you come to Texas?
I'll tell you exactly when I came to Texas. I was born in the Soviet Union. I came to the U.S. when I was 2. And when they had the vaccine passports in New York City, where I lived all my life, I said to myself, to hell with this. Me and my family didn't cross an ocean to this papers, please nonsense. So I got my butt down here to Austin, and I've lived here ever since. And I don't miss it for 1 minute what they've done to New York.
By the way, it's interesting for those around the country who don't know this. Austin is like little Portland. Austin is extremely liberal, and they're nuts there. But the state capitol is there, the actual Capitol building. You've got the Senate, you've got the House, you've got a Republican-led, government. Thank God. And the state of Texas is a very red state. Is there any sort of a duopoly in your life every day when you go into a place in Austin that you know is run by some loon, some lefty nut job, but you also know the overbearing sense in Texas is freedom and liberty, and let's all carry a gun?
I haven't had that experience, Joe, because I have a gun under my bed. If I was in Brooklyn and someone one of the reasons I'm here, I was back in Brooklyn and someone broke into my house and I did anything to defend myself as if I could because I couldn't have a gun, I'd be going to jail. Here, it's everywhere. I have not had any issues with some kind of this blue hair thing. A lot of people say that Austin is like the Portland of Texas, but it's the key word there is of Texas, not the Portland. So it's also very friendly. I think the thing, a lot of these blue cities, there's this chip on the shoulder attitude. Are you possibly a Trump supporter? That's not a thing in Austin, or at least not in the circles I travel in. Maybe I'm just lucky.
No, I think that you're right. Again, it's just Austin proper where you've got some nut jobs running stuff and they make a lot of noise and they rally in the streets. But even the outskirts of Austin isn't like that at all, which is cool. You do need more than one highway, though, Michael. 35, that's not enough. You're going to need more than just I-35, I think.
I encourage you and all your viewers to mock me as I deserve because I still haven't learned how to drive.
Stop it. Are you Ubering everywhere? What are you doing? You walking there?
I am Uber. You can't walk in this heat. My friend Colin was a professional race car driver. He was teaching me because it'd be fun content, and he got busy. So now I have to get my button gear and get a real teacher to teach me. But I still haven't learned how to drive, so I can't speak on the highway thing. But I'll tell you one more thing about what you're talking about the leftism in Austin. Right before I moved here, there were tents everywhere, just like in LA. You have these homeless cities all up and down Chavez, all up and down Congress, and there was a referendum here. And it passed and it banned it. And my friend John from LA, Burbank, he says, I don't believe it. Where are they going to move them? And Joe, do you know where they moved them to?
No. Homeless shelters?
I don't know, and I don't care, but they're not here. Do you know what I mean? So they'll figure it out.
But it doesn't make any sense to take a stand on the hill of let's have people who are homeless and drug addicted and mentally ill. Let's just have them out in front of businesses. That just didn't make any sense. So you're right. I don't care either. As long as they're not like dead or something. I hope that they're getting the care that they need for sure. It's Michael Malice. Go get his new book. It's called Not Sick of Winning: A History of President Trump's First 100 Days. And it's Malice, M-A-L-I-C-E. M-A-L-I-C-E. Go and follow him also, michaelmalice.com. Got a great podcast, too. You told me one of the times I had you on, might have been the first time I had you on like 9 years ago, that you were an anarchist. Are you still?
I'm still the anarchist. Yes, I edited the Anarchist Handbook. I think as more and more time goes on, people realize that we're not voting our way out of this, that everyone is responsible for defending themselves and their own rights and liberties. And if you look at what's happening in Canada and the UK, if Officer Harris had been elected president, you and I might be having a very different conversation right now. And a lot of people be rounded up and locked up just like they did with the January 6th martyrs.
No, I'm with you, but how does that mean? Do I have the wrong definition of anarchy in my mind, Michael? Because I think anarchy means that there's no governance. Everybody does anything they want to do. It's mayhem. I think George Soros wants anarchy in a very negative way so that he can push in globalism and control all of us like you just alluded to. So am I misunderstanding anarchy?
Yeah, anarchism means freedom, and it means everyone having the right to do what they want, as you said, but it means private governance. When I go into your house, it's your house. You're the one setting
Yes.
the rules. And when you go into my house, vice versa. Having a government forcing people to do things they don't want is exactly how societal strife. And what the government's most interested in doing, especially in big cities, is disarming citizens and punishing
Yes.
them, like Kyle Rittenhouse and Daniel Penny in New York City, who
Right.
are doing the responsible thing and keeping the community safe. I want more of that and less of this kind of helpless citizenry dependent on the state.
It was always supposed to be a small but necessary government. Get out of our way. Don't trample on our freedoms and liberties. And you're right. You and I agree wholeheartedly that the Constitution doesn't mean anything, but it's just a piece of paper in places like New York, places like
Amen.
Chicago. It doesn't really mean anything. I get that. It means something here. So are you with me that some form of government is okay as long as it doesn't trample on even one of our rights? Or do you want no government?
But that's not possible, because the second you have government, like we had the Constitution, it went from this. We ran the experiment. It's been 200 years. It went from this tiny thing, and within years, the Adams administration, people are being put in jail for saying the wrong thing against the government. So it's become the biggest state that's ever existed. And now I'd be much happier if it was a lot smaller. But you and I both see, I think, there's no mechanism in place for getting this government even back to where it was during the W. Bush years.
No, there isn't. And the way you would start that, and we can go down a whole rabbit hole here if you want, is get rid of the Federal Reserve. What the hell is
Yes.
that? It's a bunch of bankers that literally lend us like this paper stuff that we carry around that we have to pay them back with interest, and they can make more of it if they want to devalue our money, make less of it if they want to increase the value of it. They can set interest rates. A bunch of private idiots that are living large, building $3 billion complexes in Washington. So I think that'd be a good start, wouldn't it?
Amen, brother. Like I'm giving you power of attorney.
Thank you.
You're singing my song. Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day, people don't know what the Federal Reserve is. They think it's like a bank that literally is just looking out for us. It's not. They're looking out for themselves, and they're lending us the money, the thing that we call money. It's Michael Malice. Go to michaelmalice.com. Go ahead.
They're looking out for the establishment and the war regime in DC. They're not looking out just for themselves. They are the funding for the state. And what the Fed causes by printing money liberally is inflation, which is a tax on the poorest of the poor.
Yes.
If someone who has money, loses 10% of their money, it's not a big deal. But if you're struggling to put food on the table, that 10% is, a sweater, or it's car fare, or it's something else. It matters a lot. And that's why it's so malevolent to have this kind of inflationary system in place.
michaelmalice.com. Go there right now. Get his book. It is called, let me show it again. I want to make sure we show it because it's a cool cover. Not Sick of Winning. A History of President Trump's First 100 Days. Michael Malice is the author. Go and get that. Let's talk about that a little bit more because I know that you got a lot of knowledge on this. What people watching and listening don't realize is that you couldn't go to war unless you sold war bonds. You couldn't go to war unless you borrowed money. We own Alaska literally because Russia had to pay back its war debt in a war that it lost. That's why we own it. And now it's just you can go to war anytime you want. $1 trillion a year for the Defense Department, which I'm for a good, strong defense. But you can literally start a war anytime, anywhere. You don't have to even ask the people. You used to have to ask the people, would you fund this war? And we would say yes or no, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing is the Louisiana Purchase under Jefferson. That was also because Napoleon needed money to fund all his wars. So I guess in some cases the wars have worked out for us, but it's been quite a minute since that has happened. And I think it's what people understand. I think conservatives understand that if there's a problem, the government program is going to find a way to perpetuate itself. Well, if you have this $1 trillion so-called Defense Department, how much of that's actually used for defense as opposed for offense, it's going to find excuses to justify its existence, like any bureaucracy. And that means putting American military lives in danger where they don't need to be in danger. And if someone is concerned about the military, as I am, as you are, and as I'm sure every person listening to this is as well, get them out of harm's way whenever possible, as opposed to shoving them into conflicts where it's not really our concern and there's no winner to pick.
You think there's any gold at Fort Knox?
There's got to be, right? Don't you think? Why wouldn't there be?
Because nobody's gone yet. They keep saying they're going to go and tour it and tell us and give us an update and accounting of what's going on there. You think we can possibly ever get back to the gold standard, which would do exactly what you want, which is limit government? I mean, government's so fat and happy now. Why would they ever go back to the gold standard?
You answered your own question. Yes, we can theoretically.
But I'm interviewing you. I'm not interviewing me.
Right. No, but I mean, why would they? Why would I in D.C., even if I'm Mike Johnson or Rand Paul, act to effectively cripple my ability to pass bills, because then my opponent's just going to say, this guy's terrible. He hasn't passed anything. So it's a system that incentivizes the worst aspects of politicians who are not exactly good people to begin with.
Michael, I apologize for not knowing, but you were not a Trump guy going into the election, right? You were a skeptic. Did you vote for him?
I don't believe in voting, so I'm not a Trump guy.
So you didn't vote for him.
But I will say this. First of all, I think he's infinitely preferable to Officer Harris. So I'm not trying to equivocate here. And I said this before. I don't know if can I say a bad word in the show?
Not yet. In about 10 minutes you can. So don't say the bad word yet. Okay. Allude to it, because this part will be on the radio. Go ahead.
Well, because I was the one who went on Joe Rogan and called Kamala Harris the R word, or people who are mentally handicapped. And that kind of got the ball rolling in defining her as someone who's not equipped to be the president, which is certainly the case. One of the things behind this book, and I'm sure you and I would agree with, President Trump is the first president in our lifetime, and you're a little bit older than me, Joe, to over-deliver on his promises. We've never seen anything like this in his second term. In fact, I think when, you know how like in the old sitcoms when someone got hit in the head with a coconut and it became a different person, I think when that bullet grazed his ear, it changed him, because this is not the same man in the first term. We all saw that first term, and this is a completely different person. Results after results after results. If we sat down a year ago and said he's going to roll back LBJ executive orders about race and things, like, okay, that's conservative talk for the base. We know he's not going to do it. Just right. He's every day.
Yeah.
How many judges were getting arrested? The fact that John Bolton was raided. I was away in the UK for a week, and I'm like, let me look at the news. John Bolton's house is raided, and the New York Times, I don't know if you saw this, was laying the groundwork for saying, you know what, this wasn't political. They caught some stuff they shouldn't have had. Yeah. This is an entirely different planet from 2024.
Well, I'm with you, and I love the reference to the coconut in the head, and it does change you to a different person. Although I think, I mean, I'm going to say basically what you just said in a different way. He's on borrowed time. He thought he should have died that day. He literally said, I should be dead, so now I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And he's not going scorched earth. He's going scorched, very careful, very calm, controlled, burned earth. And he's making a lot of sense. So going in, I assume, because I know you, I know you pretty well, you were a skeptic, and you're blown away by what he's doing or what he did in the first 100 days.
I mean, if we sat down in like November 2024 and I said, how about he just closed the border, he holds spending a little bit in abeyance, and he cuts a few programs, you'd be like, you know what, I'll take it. You know what I mean? After what we've been through for the last 30, 40 years, that's fine. And that was like day one stuff. I'm just also gladdened and very, very hopeful that he's going to end what's the situation going on in Israel and what's going on in more importantly with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, how many lives have been lost there? So if he could, Hillary Clinton, America's mother-in-law, said if he can broker a peace deal, in Ukraine and Russia, Trump deserves a Nobel Prize. We wouldn't have imagined her saying
that was a lie. That was a lie. She said that to be relevant again, but I hear you. She literally says it on video. For those who haven't seen it, I mean, go and check this out. It's Michael Malice, MALICE, michaelmalice.com. Go and get his book. I just show you the cover again. It's called Not Sick of Winning, A History of President Trump's First 100 Days. Go and get that. The political right is split. I'm glad you brought up Israel. Political right is split. There are those who are saying, I'm anti-Israel because Netanyahu is this, that, and the other. Others say it's the promised land. They are the chosen people. They deserve to be there. That's the Jewish home. Where are you on this? I'm not saying that you're on the political right. I think you're on the political common sense. So where are you on that? I mean, of course it's okay to say Netanyahu is this, that, and the other. You can criticize. But also they almost appear to be saying Israel should not exist there, which doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I'm Jewish, just FYI, but I don't think it's America's problem. And I don't think this should be America's money or certainly American troops. The idea of putting them in harm's way is absolutely insane in this situation. It's been going on since even before over 100 years. So I would like to see less American involvement in the Middle East, broadly speaking. And I'm very hopeful. The most thing I'm hopeful for is any hostages being freed immediately. And second after that is just end the deaths and bring about peace. I have never seen anyone discuss what that would look like. It's either, kill everyone in Gaza, kill everyone, or deport everyone in Israel. Neither of those things are feasible or
right.
I don't even want to consider either of them as real possibilities. So what's the solution going to look like? I have no idea. And I wish more people were focused on answers instead of finger pointing.
Is there anything to the fact that we're a Judeo-Christian society, we're a representative republic, Israel's the closest sort of people to us and Western civilization in that general area in the Middle East?
Sure.
If they go away, then it's turned over to everybody else, and that's it. You're squeezed out a part of the world that's a lot like us. I think that's the argument people make for why we support them as much as we do. Are you saying just less support or no support financially?
I think Israel needs to stand on its own 2 feet, and I think Israel would agree with this. And as long as Israel's in any way dependent on other countries, the whole premise of Israel is that this is a nation of people who can stand up for themselves and not have to depend on the good nature of their neighbors or their allies. So the faster that transitions, the better it'll be. And I'm also concerned about this being an excuse by nefarious forces to put Americans into harm's way and regard us as viable threats viable targets. That's my big concern.
I think that's an 80-20 issue, though. I don't think Americans would ever want to go.
And there's American hostages there too. I think this is something that's glossed over. We are involved in a sense because there were Americans taken by Hamas.
Yes, exactly right. It is Michael Malice. This is the cover of the book, Not Sick of Winning, A History of President Trump's First 100 Days. Go and get it right now. Michael, is it out now? They can go get it in the usual places or what?
Amazon.com or notsickofwinning.com. There you go.
Okay, notsickofwinning.com. Go there as well. Let's talk about your podcast. When I saw it, I said, hey, you got the grammar wrong, or we wrote it wrong. Well, we didn't. It's your welcome, and it's not you are welcome. It's your possessive welcome. What does that mean?
It means I set it up for people, and you fell for my trap, Joe. I said this is your welcome to embarrass yourself in public.
Well, here you go. Well, I didn't embarrass myself. I simply asked you, was it possessive or was it a contraction? So what is it about? When I go and check it out, what is it?
It's just me. It's just me interviewing various political and cultural figures.
Nice.
I have Roseanne on in a couple of weeks. Roseanne Barr. She moved down here to Texas as well.
Yeah, she's great.
So it's really fun to hang out with her.
So go there and check it out. You just go to michaelmalice.com or look for You're Welcome on all the podcast sites.
It's on all the sites. You're welcome. Yeah, they can find it. It's on YouTube. Everywhere you can find everywhere local podcasts are found.
Okay. Well, go and get those right now. Michael Malice, anything he does, get his books, get his podcast, whatever he happens to do, check him out. I've seen you on Rogan a few times. I think you're awesome there too. Let's talk about the shooting in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota is one of those states that is generally speaking geographically red, but it's blue because of 2 counties. And it's you got an idiot like Tim Walz, who's a stolen valor guy. I can prove that. You got an idiot like this Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who wears a shirt with a knife on it about protecting trans kids. There's a trans ideology. There's a control ideology. There's an anti-parent ideology. There's an anti-Second Amendment ideology in that state. And now you've got people at Catholic Mass being shot to death by some nut job that was in the midst of that trans ideology in that state. What do you make of what's coming out of that shooting? You've got the left taking what they always take, the far left, get rid of all assault weapons. You've got the right saying, leave the Second Amendment alone, let's get some mental health. What should we do in the reverberations of a situation like that?
I'm very heartened, and I'm confident you are as well, when RFK was talking about the proliferation of psych drugs and how common they are. I think it's 1 in 4 Americans, something 1 in 5, are on one of these drugs or another. These drugs have been around for a matter of decades. The human mind, if you think the body's complex, complex the biochemical effects of the human mind. So the idea that you could take this pill and we're going to know how it's going to affect literally millions of people. I mean, think how many people are allergic to aspirin or something that's very common for you and me, or peanuts, So I think it's much broader than the trans thing. And I'm just going to say it in one sentence that everyone's going to agree with. Having a situation with defenseless children is not an excuse to create a nation of defenseless adults. I'm not giving up my guns by any circumstances, and I'm not even having a conversation about it. They will take any excuse they have to disarm us, and they don't really care how many kids are sacrificed to further their agenda. And if it's not for their guns, everyone listening to this knows we would be the same thing as Canada or the UK. And I am not going to make that happen as long as I have breath in my body.
michaelmalice.com. So well said. I mean, you're absolutely right about this. And the true irony of it all, and I guess they think we're stupid, is that every single person talking about banning guns is protected by a gun. Every single person. Amy Klobuchar is more important than little kids praying at mass. Right. Tim Walz is more important. Flanagan is more important. Keith Ellison, the so-called attorney general, the top cop in that state, literally said in some Zoom with like Karen Bass a few years ago, if you're a victim of rape, but the rapist leaves the scene, call a counselor, not a cop. So, Michael, how do we... Oh, yeah, he said that. It's verifiable. So what do you do when that mentality is somehow getting elected? because now they have power. Now they're able to control what that state does. And I feel for that state. One of my biggest stations is in Minneapolis. And at the end of the day, they call in almost weeping every day. There's nothing we can do. We cannot overcome this overwhelming ideological shift in Minnesota. What do you say to them?
I thoughts and prayers. I really don't have an answer.
Oh, thoughts and prayers don't work according to Jacob Fry.
I moved to Texas for a reason. At a certain point, you've got to think of your family and their safety. That's the reason why So I think the answer to gun control arguments isn't arguments, it's gun proliferation. They always complain about how many guns there are, and God bless America that that's the case. If there's so many guns that they can never take them away, that's the situation that you want. And they talk about it every 5 minutes. It doesn't have to have some kind of awful, crazy person tragedy for them to start talking about rounding up guns. And Here's the other thing. If you look at the COVID situation, you saw how docile America is. It was much more docile than I expected and possibly you expected. So imagine if you have that situation without a large percentage of the population having guns, there'd be no bulwark against federal tyranny. And that's the point of the Second Amendment, not to protect us from deer or protect us from China, but to protect us from a federal government that's gone out of control.
No, it quite literally is to stop tyranny. That's what it is.
Yes.
And when you say that, they're like, how many AR-15s do you need for target practice or to shoot a deer? I've got 5 guns not far from where I'm sitting. One of them's an AR-15. Not a one of them has ever shot anybody. I'm guessing the gun under your bed hasn't shot anybody either. It's not about the gun. It never has been about the gun. It's about letting people like Amy Klobuchar and Tim Walz and these other, lefty loons who want to be tyrants, Gavin Newsom. It's about letting them know in the back of their heads, we probably shouldn't try anything because these people can defend themselves. And that's, the story's been told many times, and I believe it to be true. The Japanese emperor would have kept on coming to the mainland had he not feared that we all had guns. So at what point did they make the switch that the tool is somehow the biggest enemy here?
I think Hollywood had a lot to do with it, right? Like in any movie, it's not possible to have a gun be the good guy unless it's an action movie. They're always, this like Steven Spielberg when he redid E.T., you might remember he had all the guns removed and had them replaced with walkie-talkies.
Right.
But as to whether you need it's not the bill of needs. It's the Bill of Rights. How many microphones do you need? How many newspapers do you need? How many websites do you need? They don't apply this in any other context.
Right.
So I'm not here my rights are not up for discussion, let alone a vote. They can stamp their feet all they want. Freedom means I don't have to explain myself to you, Amy Klobuchar, or Gavin Newsom, or anyone else. You don't like how many guns you have? Fine, leave my house. That's all it comes down to.
It's not the Bill of Needs? Oh, I've been confused this whole time. That's actually pretty good. I'm going to use that. I'll give you credit. It's Michael Malice, MALICE.com. Go and get his book. It is called Not Sick of Winning. It's out now. You can go to notsickofwinning.com. Is that what you do? You
That's
can do that
correct,
too?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Go there. I got to ask you about Trump going through and saying, no more DEI, you're out of here. No more CRT. Smithsonian, you want to make us out to be a bunch of bad guys? We're not bad guys. We're going to get rid of that. Oh, are you in the CDC and you suck? I'm going to get rid of you. Or are you on the Fed and you might be looked at for mortgage fraud? You're gone too. He just doesn't seem to care. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. But let's specifically talk about him righting the ship when it comes to our history and what's being taught about it.
Yeah, I think it's just, Joe, this is the first time in our lifetime that any Republican has taken scalps. I mean, if you look at what happened with Brett Kavanaugh, right, and what he went through, not one of those Democrats had any repercussions for what they did. So, of course, they're going to do it again next time. Why wouldn't they, right? But those intelligence agents who lied and said Hunter's laptop had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. What were those hallmarks? What are you talking about? The fact that they had consequences is unprecedented in our lifetime, that people who went on TV and lied and put their reputations on the line, you put your reputation on the line, you were wrong, and now you blew it. So I am delighted by this. And first of all, it's a very kind of commie thing to have this brainwashing in all the institutions to teach a very specific ideology and philosophy. If you go to the Smithsonian, the Star Spangled Banner is based on a literal flag. That flag that inspired Francis Scott Key is there on display. That's what I want to see of, not this idea that America was based on slavery and somehow like we're the only country that had slavery. We ended it. So I think it's terrific that he's hitting them where their spawning grounds are.
What's interesting about the Hunter Biden laptop thing, and you already know this, but I'll say it for the audience, the FBI had it a year earlier. They had it since 19. They had it the entire time, and everybody who'd seen it knew that it was real. That's why they weren't doing anything with it.
Right.
And once it was leaked out in October, whatever it was, of 2020, and it was completely, snuffed out by social media, and Biden was given, I think by Antony Blinken, this letter that he devised from 51 former Intel whatevers, they all knew that they were lying. So you do really feel like there's going to be some hell to pay for Brennan and Clapper and Comey and all these idiots? You think that they're going to be in trouble, really?
The fact that he revoked their security clearances, even that is something. The fact that at any cost whatsoever has never happened in decades. So of course they're going to continue to do their machinations with impunity. Why wouldn't you push your agenda if when you lose, nothing happens to you? So until people have to pay a price for doing the wrong thing, they will continue to keep doing it, and you can't blame them.
The amazing Michael Malice. Go to michaelmalice.com. Go and get his book. It's called Not Sick of Winning, A History of President Trump's First 100 Days. Yeah, as we're watching the media continue to spin, I saw something interesting yesterday. I wonder if you'll comment on this. I talked about it on my show for the past several weeks, maybe even months, that the left isn't smart enough to say, I didn't vote for Trump and I kind of think he stinks, but really glad he closed the border. Or, I didn't vote for Trump and I think that he smells bad, but man, he's really lowered crime in D.C. Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., who's a horrible mayor by all accounts, literally came out and said, just so you know, it is working with the National Guard here. Just so you know, crime really is down 86% since they came in 2 weeks ago. Michael, the media doesn't seem to be getting that memo, but I wonder what your thoughts are on somebody like Bowser, finally a politician realizing, oh, crap, I better get on board because he's really right about this, and I'll complain about the way he walks later or something, that he's orange, but I really do have to get on the right side of this or I'm out of a job.
Well, Bowser, you might remember, she went to Mar-a-Lago, I think, before he was inaugurated the second time. Right. And a few days after his real inauguration, he revoked Black Lives Matter Plaza, which was a few series of blocks directly in front of the White House. Right. And she said, we've got bigger fish to fry, or words to that effect. So she's been very clever about this for quite some time. And she also, I'm sure, realizes she's no dummy. Some of these other governors are real dumb. I don't think she's that dumb. She realizes if the federal government takes over DC, she basically has to be like, Oliver Twist begging for food. So it makes sense to be on the right side of President Trump. And that makes her look like the hero at the end of the day. So I don't think she's a dumb woman. But as you say, I think a lot of these politicians are more honest than the media. Because she's like, okay, you know what? I don't want my constituents being killed, and I'll give them credit for it at the end of the day, and then I can pretend I get credit for it too because I work with them,
Yeah, but like for 8 days, Michael, she was like, we didn't ask for it, we don't need it. The police chief is out there. I don't know what a chain of command is. And then suddenly 2 days ago, she's like, just to give you an update. And President Trump cared about Washington D.C. since before he was president, like almost saying, Citizen Trump, I agree with. Yep. Now that he's president, maybe not so much, but crime is down, and that's really good. And then we'll go to somebody like J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, who's a billionaire, not a dumb guy, but I think he thinks he's the king. He certainly eats like a king. What do you think of this guy coming out and announcing to the world, I don't want the crime in Chicago to go down because Trump bad? I mean, is he deluded, or does he think he's going to win? He's not going to win. Every community in Chicago wants less crime. What do you think of that?
Just because they want less crime doesn't mean they want Trump or want Republicans. We see this in New York when Governor Mayor de Blasio got reelected. At a certain point, partisanship even trumps your own kids. You see this with many parents who were just happy to give their kids hormones simply because it's the correct thing to do in their socio-political class. Wow. So I think it's very scary when you think about how votes work in those terms. That's one of the reasons I am an anarchist. And one of the things I'm delighted about with Trump is that, like you said, he doesn't care. He's like, you know what? I'm going to make it safe. And then if you don't like it, you know what? Go home and tuck your kids in at night and be glad that no one got shot today. That's, I think, governance at its best.
No, I agree with you. But what's interesting is there are inflection points. There really is critical mass. Yes. You lived in New York. I'm from New York, Metro New York originally. Right. We know that even they held their nose and voted for Rudy Giuliani in the early 90s because they knew they had to get rid of the crime and the prostitution, all the sordid activity and the mob bosses and everything else. And he did that. They also elected Pataki, which didn't make any sense either, other than they'd hit critical mass. Do you think that's possible in California? California is 60-40 now, Democrat to Republican voting-wise. Can that happen in Illinois? That's basically geographically a red state, except for Chicago and the anaconda districts they made to make it more Democrat. Are we getting close to that there? Because New York can do it, and then they screwed up and voted a bunch of blue in after that. But they knew they wanted to get safety and security. Can that happen again?
I think of those three, New York is most likely because, as people listening to this might remember, New York has had a Republican state senate for, I think, a very long decades. Governor
Yes.
Rockefeller had been governor, for like 20 years. John Lindsay had been mayor of New York, mayor of New York City as a Republican. So there is a history in New York State, New York City, of having these like Rockefeller Republicans in place. California, I think, is a lost cause for at least 10 years. Illinois is different because it is very much red, surrounded by red states.
Yes.
Downstate is basically the Confederacy.
Right.
It's only the power of Chicago that's outsized. So they're going to have a long road to hoe. But honestly, I don't think you and I would care if they had a Democrat there who was tough on crime and just
Not
made
at all.
people's lives better. It's not a partisan thing, but
No.
it's become a talking point in Illinois to be like, I'm the governor who stands up to Trump, and that's at the expense of people's safety.
I don't think it's ever about R&D for you and me. I'm not a Republican. You're not a Republican or Democrat. I'm a conservative guy in my value system, and I want there to be safety and security and freedom and smaller government and all that stuff. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think you're probably right. Illinois can do something. I'm a little more of an optimist in California, even though they only got 17% Republican representation in the House. They have a 40% Republican base now. I mean, a few votes and you change that over. And Gavin Newsom, Michael, can you give me something on Gavin Newsom? Here's a guy that had to openly admit as mayor that he slept with his friend's wife. Here's a guy that ran deficits every time he did anything in San Francisco as the mayor. Here's a guy that has gotten $23 billion to solve the homeless problem that has only gotten exponentially worse, and he thinks he's going to be the president. Help me understand this guy.
I don't think he thinks he's going to be the president. He might as well run. What's the downside? If he's term limited, what's the cost? If I run for president, I get people to give me money so I can give speeches. I raise my national platform. I get paid a lot. There's no downside to me. So of course he's going to run. I think California is different from Illinois because it's so big and the Democratic machine is so powerful.
Yeah.
Even if you did have that 40% Republican base in terms of voting, in terms of getting at the vote and that infrastructure, that is really an uphill climb where it's be much easier in a state like New York, which does have a very effective Republican Party. But at the end of the day, a lot of these people who run for president, Pataki ran for president, you might remember in 2016,
right, I did.
Aren't really thinking they're going to win. They're thinking, what's the downside? Officer Harris didn't even make Iowa in 2020, and she became VP. So if you run and you fizzle out, maybe you're Secretary of Commerce or Secretary of State. So there's no downside for him running, and it's just a way to increase his platform. I don't think he has a good shot at all of getting the nomination.
So you don't think, because I see him, he had some interview yesterday where he's got really mad and I want him to clear his voice. I'm not sure why he's doing that with his voice, but whatever it is, he literally looks like he's trying to be the anti-Trump. And I get the feeling that he thinks he's entitled to something. You think the entitlement is getting more money, more speeches, more fame?
And I don't think there's no guarantees in life. He's not dumb enough to think it's going to be a cakewalk to get the Democratic nomination. And you can stop his campaign in one sentence. You just put up his picture and say, would you buy a used car from this man? And it's a wrap. Right?
Well, that's an easy answer. It's Michael Malice. Get not sick of winning a history of President Trump's first 100 days. Make that happen. I've been in the media, and I'm somebody who's in the media, whatever, but I'm not legacy. But I've been in this for a long time, 36 years, and I've seen a major change. I used to be a television news anchor, and I was as unbiased as possible. And people would literally write me emails saying, "Great, another liberal on my TV," and of course, I don't have a liberal bone in my butt. That's how dumb people can be, right? But in watching the media today, there's something interesting afoot, and I wonder if you've got a comment on this. Don Lemon pushed out, he's doing some lame podcast now. Joy Reid pushed out, doing some lame podcast now. A few other, Jim Acosta pushed out, doing some lame podcast now. They're calling it the Jim Acosta Show. Like they're still somehow above reproach. Same thing with Colbert being squeezed out now, rightfully so. His ratings suck. They're losing $40 million a year. Having said all of that, these people still think that they're relevant. Jen Psaki will probably be out of a job very soon. She'll do the Jen Psaki show. Is this a positive thing that we're seeing where big media conglomerations are going, oh crap, they caught us, we better stop this now? Or are they just at smoke and mirrors now to try to make some money?
I do think at a certain point when people are so histrionic, it hurts the brand. Now, you want that if you're MSNBC, right? If I'm MSNBC and I'm preaching to the liberal choir openly and brazenly, great. I want my nut job people. But even at a certain point there, Joy and Reid, Mrs. Potato Head, you're like, you know what? It's more of a cost than a benefit because you're just a loon. Jen Psaki and Chris Matthews know how to stick, or Chris Hayes, whoever, I get them confused, know how to stick to the script. Rachel Maddow knew how to stick to the script and not be an embarrassment as much as Joy Reid is. It's really kind of funny because I'm sure you might remember in 2015, Ann Coulter was with Joy and Reid on Bill Maher's show.
Yes,
and Bill Maher said, who's most likely to win? And Ann Coulter says, of the Republicans running, Donald Trump. And Joy and Reid just laughed in her face. And now every single day she's crying and in constant pain because Donald Trump is president again. And she's got to be selling pencils on the street corner trying to earn a buck.
It's Michael Malice. Go to michaelmalice.com. Get his book called Not Sick of Winning. Inside scoop on Rachel Maddow. You don't know this, but I'll tell the story. In 2007 or 2008, I was flown into New York to do a pilot with Rachel Maddow. We're going to do the Crossfire thing. It was going to come back to headline news. And we did it for like a week. And they literally told me, she's not keeping up, so we're probably not going to do the show. And then she ended up at MSNBC. But let me say this about Rachel Maddow, and people get mad at me when I say this. Very nice person. Somebody who I got along with just classically. I had no problem with her at all, but she wasn't this extreme thing. So the reason I bring it up is, A, I think it's kind of a cute story, but B, what do you think happens to a person like that? She wasn't that person that she is now, where she will openly and blatantly lie to you and me because there's a narrative. Like she complained about Trump's tax, he won't release his tax returns. He released them, or they got a hold of them. He paid $36 million in taxes. She looked like an idiot. Or she said the COVID vaccine that really does work. It stops when you take the shot. It doesn't stop. That was a lie. That wasn't true. What do you think happens? Is it money? Is it ideology? Is it if you're extreme, people will watch you more? Because that isn't who I found her to be personally. But what she's doing on MSNBC is a completely different character.
Well, Joe, I also have inside information. The reason that show got canceled is there was too much testosterone in that room. It was alienating.
and not from me. Is that what you're saying?
It's both.
What's the matter with you?
You have it on both sides. Just testosterone.
It's probably
testosterone. Testosterone.
They could have called it testosterone tonight. They could have done that. Yeah.
I think there's something called audience capture. And Chris, the lesbian-looking one, Chris Hayes, whichever one is left, he was complaining at one point. He said, when we do global warming stories, people tune out. And at the end of the day, yes, they're ideologues, but they still have to put the lights on. They still have to pay the guy running the cameras.
Yes.
So hating on Trump became a hobby for a lot of people for 4 years, much less now during his second term, I think, than during those 4 years. And if you just had a piece on, President Trump isn't that bad, you're a Trump supporter. If you said he's a moron who is like a C, you're a Trump supporter. That's how crazy it was. People might even forget that. So they kind of had their actors filling a role. And I kind of felt at the end of the day, that's kind of, she has to look at her own conscience. That's all I can say on that issue.
No, I'm with you. It's Michael Malice. Go to michaelmalice.com. Get his book called Not Sick of Winning, A History of President Trump's First 100 Days. What's startling to me is what happened right after the election. The media numbers were what they were. MSNBC and CNN weren't doing great, but they weren't doing horribly. As soon as Trump won, it's like America woke up and said, they've been freaking lying to me this entire time. Yes. As soon as he won, you saw CNN, I think, dropped 50%, Michael. Was that an awakening for the American people where they went, wow, much of what they said had to be wrong, or else why would he have won?
I don't think it was an awakening for the American people. I don't think people are capable of being awoken very much. If they had been, COVID couldn't have happened. Yeah. But I think it was an awakening for the executives, because those executives are like, all right, we tried to sell this, crappy car. No one wants it. And so now we have to regroup. And I think the smarter ones very quickly are like, we can't keep going and saying half the country are Nazis who are mentally handicapped and this and that. Yeah, we need to kind of regroup and try to at least not have such toxicity to the brand. As you know, and people listening to this, I'm sure know, the Democratic Party right now has their lowest approval ratings in our lifetime.
Right.
And that's something, when you're trying to raise money from donors, that's going to be hard, because people who are wealthy don't want to throw good money after bad. So they want some return on their investment. And that's something they've had to do some navel gazing. But I think they're going to do fairly well in the midterms. I wouldn't count them out, because all they care about and what they're good at is seizing and maintaining power. Don't count the Democrats out.
Well, I think individual district by individual district, you're absolutely right. And they always have a better ground game. Nationally, their party sucks. And nationally, for a general, they're going to have a hard time. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. They want to get the House back to stop his agenda. And the Republicans have to be smart about this. michaelmalice.com, go there. Michael, as you're watching everything unfold, you found yourself to be happily surprised by his first 100 days. I'm guessing you're just as happy about the second 100. But what is there that he's done or that he hasn't done that you'd like to see him do?
And the Fed. That's
we talked about that. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
During the first, when he ran in 2015, 2016, he said he would audit the Fed. I would love to see that happen. I would love to see more of RFK looking at the effects of a lot of these drugs on individuals, because that's a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue. I
Yes.
would love, and you would love, and people just love, even a 1% cut in the federal budget from year to year, just 1%. Surely you could find 1% to cut. Even if he went back to just the Obama budget, he would be regarded as this kind of wide-eyed radical. So it's kind of crazy. I'm very heartened by many of his judicial choices, and I'm delighted that he's having people like two judges got arrested for helping illegals. That's the rule of law. So, and I want to see more of an assault in any means necessary on the universities, because that's where the toxicity starts. You have a young man, young woman go to college as a healthy, happy young co-ed, and they return as an unrecognizable swamp walrus who can't have a conversation with their parents at the dinner table. That's the problem, and that's where the targeting has to go.
I couldn't agree more. You know, the whole budgeting thing, I think the baseline is 8% increase just because, which is more than any sort of increase in wages and real wages. So it doesn't make any sense. What bothers me most about that, and maybe a comment on this if you don't mind, and I appreciate all the time you've given us today, the pre-COVID spending, if we just went back to that, it would be $2 trillion less. And they never, ever rolled it back. I mean, Joe Biden announced at the North American International Auto Show in Detroit in the first year or two of his administration that COVID is over, or the pandemic is over. We never rolled the money back. That's just free money forever?
Joe, also, you and I also remember when the Soviet Union collapsed and the Cold War ended, we have a peace dividend. Now we don't have to have this huge bloated bureaucracy because we don't have, Russia pointing nukes at us. We can, and that never happened. So it never goes away. There's always some excuse and there's always some, but I'll defend Trump in this regard. Okay. There is not anything close to a conservative majority in the House. He's got like 3 Republican votes. There's plenty of those Republicans who are squishes. So I don't blame him entirely, but that I was not a fan of that big, beautiful bill. It's a little too big and beautiful for my tastes.
Well, I absolutely said we had to have less spending in that. You had to get something done. And reconciliation, whatever, that not really the budget. Rescission, we should do more of that. $8 or $9 billion isn't enough. Let's do like a few $100 billion to really show how strong we are. Michael, you and I agree on a lot. I'm still not sure that you're an anarchist. You say you are, but okay. I get where you're coming from. Oh, let me end with this. Rand Paul and his father, Ron Paul, have always said we shouldn't be the policeman of the world. I agree with him. I think you agree with him. But we also can't be isolationists, because isolationists end up, getting in harm's way without realizing it. Yeah. Can we take our troops out of all these countries? Can we stop being the police officer of the world? Can we just let what happens in Syria happen, or Iraq, let that happen? If the Iranian people want to get rid of the Ayatollah, let that happen. Can we back out of this role that we've taken on for so long?
But I don't even if we're internationalists, we don't have to be the policeman of the world. Can't we be the referee of the world? Can't we be the country, which has happened many times, where you have two? He just did this with was it Macedonia, whatever it was. If you have two nations who are having a squabble and we don't have a horse a dog in the fight, come talk to us. We have the clout, we have the credibility. Let's hash it out. Compromise is something that no one likes, but everyone can live with. That's a good role for the U.S. that doesn't involve putting us in harm's way and increases our stature in the world. That's something I'd like to see more of, and less of this idea that if you go wrong, we're just going to send how many billions of dollars and perpetuate wars that will end up in a stalemate anyway, like the Korean War, and with nothing to show for it. That's my big concern.
Yeah, people don't realize the Korean War never ended. It's just a ceasefire for now. Right. It's Michael Malice. Yeah, I think it was Armenia and Azerbaijan, and he also got he took care of India and Pakistan. So I mean, I think you're right. I mean, he has literally served as the referee because he wasn't involved. I'm not in it, but I'm here to help you solve it. So very smart, Michael. I appreciate the time. MichaelMalice.com. Go check out his podcast. You're welcome. He tricked me on the grammar on it. Hey, go get his book. Not Sick of Winning: A History of President Trump's First 100 Days. Loved having you on, Michael. Thanks so much. Let's do it again soon, my friend.
I would love that. Always a pleasure, Joe.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon. That's it for Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags this time. Another one to drop soon. Make sure that you follow and subscribe to this playlist.